Let's face it, business technology is frustrating and complex. So how do you make sure it works for your team? To make IT right, start the discussion at go-domain.com. You're listening to Discussions by Domain, a podcast for business leaders. Our discussions may be with people you've probably heard of before, but the majority of our guests are in the trenches, professionals like you and I, with the same challenges and struggles of keeping up in the Northeast. They're implementing strategies, overcoming hurdles. They're leading the fastest growing businesses in our region. My name is Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services, and the host of this show. When I'm not talking with business leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of Domain and the ups and downs of our own growth journey, as we intend to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome to another episode of Discussions by Domain. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming Jacquelyn Litt, Ph.D., who is the Dean of Douglas College and Douglas Campus. She is a professor in the Department of Sociology and Women's and Gender Studies, and today we're going to be talking about empowering women in STEM. Jacquelyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. So before we get started in the topic, let's talk about a little bit about yourself and what you guys are up to nowadays at Douglas.
Okay. Well, first I want to say I'm very happy to be at Domain. I think it's a very exciting company, and Michelle is our alum from Douglas College at Rutgers University. So I was very impressed to hear her story, and then to come here and see what she and her husband have built over the years. It's very impressive, and she's very, very generous to Douglas and meeting with her students. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and to hear about the good work.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah. So I have a Ph.D. in sociology and have since I graduated, I went to the University of Pennsylvania for my Ph.D.
Okay.
And since then have worked largely in building communities in support of women and around scholarship around women's lives. So this latest iteration, which is my dream job really, is to lead the Women's College at Rutgers. We have 2,600 women, all of whom are ambitious, energetic, and really, really smart. They choose to enroll at Douglas. So our enrollment has been going up steadily, which is unlike, it is awesome.
Yeah.
It's unlike the situation for many women's colleges where it's harder and harder to identify women who want to go to a women's college. We've done very well because we're a women's college, but we're also within Rutgers. So it's really a small college experience within a very large, world-class, excellent university.
Yeah, definitely.
So we also are the most diverse, racially diverse unit at Rutgers, New Brunswick. So that's been happening steadily over also the past decade or so. So we're a top producer of Phi Beta Kappas and other fellowships. So we are what we call, a model of inclusive excellence.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really fabulous.
Cool. So real quick, let's touch on I know there was two things you wanted to touch on about what you guys are up to at Douglas College. I think you just celebrated an anniversary.
So a couple of years ago, we celebrated the 100th anniversary of the college, which was very, very exciting. And, and I'll talk about the history in a little bit, but it was really an occasion to celebrate both the advances of our alumni and the advances of our students and the remarkable shifts and success of the college over the last century.
Yeah, so that's a very long time and still relevant and prospering and everything. That's amazing. So why don't we touch on the history of Douglas? For our listeners who are in New Jersey that don't know, they know maybe have heard of Rutgers, obviously. I think they have, but give us the history of Douglas College and how it got started and where kind of the timeline to where you guys are today.
So Douglas started in 1918 as the New Jersey College for Women. It was the first opportunity for women in the state to have a public university education.
Okay.
And we were kind of late. New Jersey was kind of late.
Okay.
So it was founded by the New Jersey Federation of Women's Clubs. Now, at this point in the country, women's clubs were active all around the country to support all kinds of causes in the service of the social good.
Okay.
So the New Jersey Women's Club decided women in New Jersey deserve the right to an education, and public education, and a true liberal arts education. So they enlisted Mabel Smith Douglas to lead a fundraising and really essentially marketing campaign.
Yeah.
And she did that. She did that partly by doing a door-to-door campaign where people donated $1 to the college. So she raised money there. She raised money eventually from the state, begrudgingly.
Yeah.
But they gave some money over, and one of the legislators said, I don't think she'll succeed. Let's just give her money and she'll go away. And
wow.
of course she did succeed.
That's amazing.
There was a federal act that provided funds.
Okay.
So they built this college. It started with, a dozen students, and it quickly, within 10 years, I think the enrollment, or maybe less than that, the enrollment was up to 1,000. There was clear demand.
Wow.
Right.
That's amazing. And these were all New Jersey-based women,
Yeah,
or
they were,
mostly coming locally? Okay.
Yes, they were all New Jersey women. And so the college steadily grew. It offered classic liberal arts. It offered home economics, which is very popular, but was completely steeped in science. And it started very early out with an emphasis on training women in the sciences.
Okay.
So then in 1955, the college was renamed Douglas College in honor of the founder, Mabel Smith Douglas, who also was the first dean.
Okay.
And then the latest change came in 2007 when the colleges at Rutgers were consolidated, and Douglas was the only one that was left standing because of the continuing commitment to women's education by Rutgers University.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very good. And then in the 1980s, I read in my research that the Douglas Project for Rutgers Women in Math, Science, and Engineering began.
Right.
What has that meant to empowering women in STEM?
Right. So the project, we were the first in the country in 1986 to establish this highly focused program to advance women in the sciences. Really, the problem back then continues to be the problem to some extent now, and that is the underrepresentation of women in many STEM fields. So then compared to now, biology, for example, has the majority of the undergraduate population are women.
Yeah.
But we still struggle in other fields. So we started this program, and we have really built it into something. Half of our students major in a STEM field.
That's awesome.
And the irony about Douglas in general and about the Douglas Project for women in STEM is that we still need these programs. Yeah. I hear all the time, time will solve the problem of women's underrepresentation in STEM. Just give it another generation. Give it another generation. And the truth is that the inequality for women and people of color continues to reproduce itself in STEM.
It does.
So what this program does is intervene in whatever factors may lead women to leave STEM. That's not to say that STEM is the right field for everybody.
Correct.
But there are factors that contribute to the attrition rate. So the lack of a feeling of belonging in a classroom, the lack of women faculty and role models, the lack of highly conscious focus on the social good of science.
Okay.
These are all factors, and simple bias against women and against people of color. These are all factors that make it sometimes a very chilly climate. And so what we're trying to do is sort of, all right, let's try to give you the skills and the resources to manage when that happens.
Okay.
And we're also at the same time working with faculty to talk about these issues. Rutgers itself, and I'm working with one department in particular that's very keen on this. Rutgers itself is increasingly self-conscious about being an open and inclusive environment for women in STEM. So you kind of work on both ends. You work on institutional change and culture, and you work on what skills do students need to allow them to thrive in a climate that may not be absolutely great for them.
Yeah.
So it's been tremendous. We have major programs right now in engineering and computer science, and these are two fields where women are particularly underrepresented, in some of the physical sciences as well. In engineering and computer science, we found very, very good partners at Rutgers. The Dean of Engineering, Tom Ferris, at Rutgers has changed the face of the School of Engineering in terms of the representation of women. Yeah. And the current chair of computer science, Matt Stone, Fred Roberts from DIMAX, and others are very committed in the Department of Computer Science to retain more women.
That's awesome.
Computer science.
Yeah. So a thing that we struggle with at Domain, and you mentioned it, so I just want to give you a real case study, right? Yeah. It's not data, it's not research, but it's a live case study, right? So what we noticed at Domain from engineering standpoint, when we go out and post a job or an application for a mid to senior level engineer, 99.9% of the resumes that we get back are from men. And then we go to programs like you and events that go on like this, and we see so many women, or we go even further back. We go to the high school level, middle school level with the Boys and Girls Club, and they throw a STEM conference, and we go there, and it's 50-50. There's women, there's men.
It gets tighter and tighter and tighter.
Yeah, so we see this across the spectrum. So what the only way, or the way we've been able to bring women into Domain in digital marketing and engineering, all of these, is by going to the community college or the state college level to grab them there at like that entry level and give them that shot, and then they stay with us. But it's still, you talked about the attrition from like, I'm interested in STEM to like, then we get to this mid-senior level and everybody's gone.
Yep.
So it's exactly what we're seeing in real life. And we're trying to figure out, how do we attract more women to apply?
This is the million-dollar question. And
where do we lose them?
Every corporate leader I talk to expresses the same frustration. And I think, and even those who can fill the entry ranks at a job, at a company, will see attrition through the ranks.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So by the time you're ready to want to promote someone up into senior leadership, there are fewer women than began. Yeah. So I'll tell you, from the undergraduate level, and I am not sure how different it is at the corporate level, the sense of belonging and the sense of entitlement. Not entitlement in terms of,
negative,
but the sense that I am entitled to this career, I am supported in this career, I have a community around myself in this career, and very strong messaging from the top makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
What we've seen is the mentorship, and I think where you're getting to this mentorship level of people to look up to that are in these mid or senior levels. So what we've been investing in, NJBIA, large state-run organization, right? Their women's conference has been blowing up year over year over year. We send everybody there.
Right.
Everybody has to go, just to show that there's other people that you can look out to mentors, and we want you to go engage with those people as mentors to continue to show yourself.
I think that's terrific. I think, radical transparency in how promotions are made.
Yep.
And in how decision making is made is very important, because a lot happens before the meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In a closed door. I think there's another big study that documented that women, more than men, and I don't like generalizations, but need to see their work as having value. And there are times, too often, that they feel that they're not doing the kind of work that they consider adding value. Okay. So also looking at the kinds of assignments that people are getting and whether it resonates with their value system.
Yeah.
Rather than, and this is very hard because I run an organization too, rather than this needs to be done, well, you do it. It's much harder to sort out, well, what's the skill set? What's the promotion ladder for this individual? What would be, a good fit, and what does he or she want to do? It takes a lot of care.
Yeah.
This is the same problem at the college level.
Okay.
So what we're doing at Douglas very successfully is providing programs and role models and mentoring and community to women who say they would never have stayed in engineering, for example, without this gestalt of you belong here.
Yeah.
You are valued here.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. What barriers do you see women, and we're kind of talking about them, but what barriers do you see women still facing in this computer science and STEM career fields that are just like blatantly apparent?
Well, one is a continuation of bias, and part of it is what people call today unconscious bias.
Okay.
So, or second generation bias, first generation bias being very blatant, which still happens.
Yeah.
But there's been research over the past 20 years into the unconscious schemes we have that automatically, when you hear the word doctor or engineer, you're just unconsciously, it's less than a second, you probably think of a white man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we all fall prey to that, every single one of us, or other kinds of assumptions that are just unconscious. And there are many, many studies that document how that plays out into who gets rewarded, who gets promoted, who gets called on in class. So there's now an effort to be training people about how unconscious bias works. And what's nice about the concept is that we all do it.
Yes.
Right? It's not, you're bad, and the rest of us are good. So I myself am guilty of doing it. Everybody grows up with these schemes, right?
Yeah.
So there's bias. I also think the work-life conflict, which is also a conflict for men increasingly, but is tremendous. These careers demand almost round-the-clock attention. Mm-hmm. And now that we're in this global economy that's also round the clock, it's very hard to steer back the expectations of when you're working and right.
Yeah.
And I mean the biggest applause line I had at a talk I gave at a pharma company here in Jersey was when I said, the schools end at 3:00 in the afternoon. That was based on the old farming model, right, where the kids went.
Yeah.
But that's not how the workforce works. And the now. So the women in the room were saying, and these were all high, level scientists were saying, there's something wrong that our kids get out at 3 and we get out at 6, and then we can't really get home at 3, and so I think women opt out. Yeah,
I would agree with you.
And workplaces that are more flexible keep women in.
I agree 100% with that. And I think that even the whole 9-to-5 mentality, which was developed right back for the manufacturing days and unions, and we need to set a strict schedule of when we come in and when we go. You mentioned it, the global workforce, when people are working. I mean, we're constantly working with people in other time zones all the time now.
Exactly.
So,
that created an enormous change
in everything.
Yes.
So what I hope is that creates opportunity for more flexible work arrangements.
It should.
That allows women to come back into these engagements and feel like they are included.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. There's the other piece of it is what happens when a woman or a man takes time off for childcare or a few years. There aren't very good on-ramps to get back in.
Okay. Yeah.
So, that's another barrier that we can be talking about in terms of policy, government policy and institutional policy. There's a lot of really great talent who are not finding the on-ramps back in.
Gotcha. Yeah. They want to come back into the workforce, but they don't know where to get started again. Okay. Let's go to what programs exist to support diversification in these fields that you know about at Douglas that you can educate us on.
Okay. So at Douglas, one of the most important projects that we do is support rising freshmen.
Okay.
So students who are going into their sophomore year, early on, right into research.
Okay.
Because that demonstrates to students, it's the first time they actually get into a lab or into any kind of workroom. And for many of them, it challenges the stereotype of the isolated scientist who works alone in a basement in a dark room, right?
Yeah.
And they also, they are producing research, and they produce posters where they talk about the research. And for those students, about 100% of them they declare a major in STEM.
Okay, awesome.
So that's a very important program. We also have 4 living learning communities at Douglas. One is an all-women residence hall for STEM majors of all types, where we build in community and role modeling programs.
Okay.
And then living learning community, computer science majors, engineering majors, and now pre-health students. And those are small communities where they take common courses, and they build a peer support network, which they tell us is the most important factor in keeping them in the field.
Yeah, I am completely unknown about living learning communities. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Those are, this is widespread across the country. We just focus them in on STEM.
Okay.
Those are communities where students live together in a dorm, and they will take a common course. So they'll all be in the same course. And then in the case of Douglas, they take, let's say, an engineering course and a course at Douglas. So they're basically in 2 courses together.
Okay.
They meet all the faculty, all the women faculty in the fields. They go on field trips. They do site visits. We were just saying this would be a great site visit for a computer science or engineering.
Definitely, yeah.
They finish their first year. Then they go on to mentoring the underclassmen. And it works. I mean, in engineering, again, it's almost 100% graduation rate.
That's amazing.
And in computer science, we have a higher declaration rate in the major than women who are not in the living learning community. So I'm a sociologist, so this is one reason why I really pushed these when I started. It's all about community and a sense of belonging and support.
Yeah.
And it radically transforms these fields and these women's lives, most importantly.
And the results are there to back it up.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Good stuff. So in 2010, you became the 10th dean of Douglas College. Talk to us about the career development program that you started during your time.
Right. So we did a strategic planning process, and one of the things that I saw and our students saw was that Rutgers Career Services is tremendous. It's very good, but it's big.
Yeah.
And they wanted more programming focused on their lives as women, or African American women, or Latina women, white women. So we thought we would open this center. It's bold. It stands for Building Opportunities for Leadership Development.
Okay.
And what we do there is we have one major program, which is we received a major gift to develop, called the Riley Program, for career development, where we place students in short-term internships, what we call externships.
Okay.
And we train them over a series of 4 seminars. We're moving into now 15 hours of training about how to maximize professional relationships, how to work in a diverse working environment, how to understand, for example, what work is going to look like in the future now that artificial intelligence is becoming more and more prevalent in how we organize work and think about work. Yeah. And then finally, how to get an internship. So that's one major program that we offer for hundreds of students. We have leadership training programs. We have a program where students in their first year fill out their plan for themselves.
Okay.
Because a lot of students, don't.
Yeah.
Who does, right?
A lot of professionals don't.
Right, exactly. And I'm trying to get my son to do it, So they actually have to fill out a plan for what they see in their future and what they're going to take. They're not bound to it, but it makes them start being much more intentional. So we do all kinds of things, like help them practice their elevator
pitch
speech,
and all that kind
right?
of stuff.
We do resume writing, and we really cater it to women and the diversity among women. So it's usually successful and popular, and we can't really keep up with the student demand there.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Can you real quick before we transition over to a little bit more about yourself. What is the relationship between Douglas College and Rutgers? Like, somebody wants to go to Douglas College. What does that experience, like, what does that look like for them?
Right.
So they understand
a student will enroll in one of the schools, arts and science, pharmacy, engineering, let's say, and co-enroll in Douglas. So,
Understood.
So she would be in both places.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And for women that hear this and are interested in looking further into this, where would you point them? A website?
The douglas.rutgers.edu website.
Perfect.
So
we'll make sure.
Get the contact information.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get that from Megan, and Tyler will link to all of this in the show notes of the episode too, so people just can quickly find it as well.
Great.
But I wanted to get that out in the middle as somebody's ready to go. Like you can go right to the Douglas website, and we'll make sure we get you that. Switching the script a little bit now. Tell us a little bit about yourself in the sense of, if you were to go back and give your younger self some advice, say you're just getting out of your bachelor's degree, what advice would you give yourself now looking back to that time?
Frankly, it would probably be to have more confidence.
Okay.
You know, and I do think this is something that a lot of young women suffer from. And, you know, I saw my professor who was retiring from college, and he said, "You were so good, and you just needed more confidence." And that hit me, right? Because what opportunities might I have missed? So I think, and I say this to all young girls and women, you know, that confidence factor is super important, and it's something to really work on. So if I had this kind of awareness then, I would have, you know, probably would have saved me some anguish.
How do you recommend somebody build confidence in themselves?
I think partly through getting out and trying things, and that's partly what Douglas does. If you have a safe landing at Douglas, right, you're not going to fail hard. Everybody fails, but you're not going to fail hard. Okay. You're going to fail with other people around you, and who also fail sometimes. I mean, I tell my students I have a ding letter drawer where every rejection from everything up, you know, we all have them. We don't talk about them.
Correct.
So failing and being in a place where you can fail and make a mistake is important. So you want to provide that institutional context for students. But even if you don't know if you have it, go for it, because you're not going to get anywhere without having a failure. And another failure and another.
Yeah, I couldn't speak to this more. So my marketing director at Dell, who you guys had the pleasure of meeting prior to this, even my wife, her name's Randy, building confidence in them, in their professional careers, has just, I've seen explosive growth. So like my recommendation to everybody, and Adele and I got to go to a Princeton Chamber breakfast actually, where this woman was speaking about confidence and mentorship and whatnot. And my advice to everybody is, everybody's always looking for the mentor up, like who can mentor me. I also say, and this came from this event, was look who you can mentor the other way, right? And you, even if you're in your bachelor's, you can look back to high school or middle school and help, in this case, a woman specifically, like know that they can get to the bachelor's. And then when you get to your master's or your Ph.D., always be looking backwards, so that will help give them the confidence. And I think that's a way people can actually take this, whether you're a man or woman, it doesn't matter.
That's right. I agree. And what we found, and it wasn't what I expected, what we found when we have peer mentoring programs at Douglas, just to your point, where juniors will mentor first-year student, or our students will go out and mentor middle school girls, they grow their confidence. They grow their identity, in many cases in STEM, because they sort of own it. They own the identity, and they get that partly in interaction with other people, and helping others.
That's outstanding. So we gotta keep spreading that message, because I think that's a really good message.
And the thing, when we go to our alumni, or when we come to companies like this and say, you know, we need mentors for our students, people line up. We have, you know, we just met with a company last week, and they said, you know, we have 700 volunteers. You know, tell us what you need. So we want, at Douglas, I want to create as many of these partnerships. It's a win-win for everybody, right? I mean, companies get to see our incredibly talented students and think about hiring. People feel good giving back, and our students get a tremendous amount from the relationship.
And the number one thing that all private companies and public companies are faced with right now is retaining and attracting top talent. So you got to be involved in it some way or another, right? What books I also have expanded this to other media because this is a podcast, right? So it could be a podcast, but it could be a documentary, have changed your thought process or you've gifted or recommended to somebody else?
Well, I'd say two things. One, in my own life, growing up as an academic, the work of Black feminist writers and scholars really changed the way I look at the world, the way I look at my own privilege as a white woman, and the way I understand sociologically how the diversity among women is as important for us to be paying attention to as the relations among all the genders, right? So that work, Toni Morrison, Patricia Collins, Bell Hooks, those kinds of things are at the foundation of how I think and how I lead. I also love the books that we assign our students. All our students read a book in common, which was in style when I was in college. It's not so. It's more and more in style now. So my favorite of those was Sonia Sotomayor's autobiography.
Okay.
My Beloved World. It was a wonderful account of her claiming her education and moving from rather humble beginnings to the Supreme Court. Yeah. So it's a phenomenal book.
Okay, we'll make sure we link to the Amazon. I'm sure it's on Amazon. Yeah, we'll link to the Amazon version of that so people can get it however they prefer.
It's a great holiday gift.
I love it. What nonprofit do you personally support and you would like to give some more recognition to?
Well, my major philanthropy goes to the college.
Awesome.
And my job is partly to raise funds. And I have had other jobs where I was expected to raise funds. The fit didn't feel right to me until I got to Douglas, and I see the transformation we make, we create for students. And so I find it rather seamless to ask people for support for the college because I know the good it's doing, and because I know the good it's doing, I give my own money.
That's outstanding.
Right.
I love it. And is there, Megan, we may be able to get this from you, is there a separate site for the philanthropy?
Yes.
The foundation
and
everything?
But it's Douglas.represent.du/student.
Awesome. Okay. So we'll make sure we get that as well. Who is a thought leader or practitioner here in the Northeast, New Jersey, Northeast, that you'd also like to give some recognition to?
I'm going to start maybe with a surprise, and that is one of our assemblymen, Andrew Zwicker, who I think is doing the right thing in terms of science and bringing science as a policy issue to the public. I think we need a lot more work on that. I think the women representatives in the assembly, Loretta Weinberg, Nancy Pinkin, Tammy Murphy, and who spoke at our graduation, and the lieutenant governor, Sheila Oliver, is phenomenal. Just phenomenal. Sheila Oliver, Tammy Murphy, Andrew Zwicker, Loretta Weinberg, and our students. They are thought leaders. They are my thought leaders. They teach me about the world and about life.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So once again, everybody, this is Dean Litt from Douglas College. Thank you so much for coming in, spending this time. I know you have an extremely busy calendar, way busier than my calendar.
I don't think so. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much.
To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device. To help us get the word out, share with a friend, leave a review, and check out our discussions on the web at go-domain.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.